and I have designed an electromotor for a fly rod to make it cast better. And this little engine here helps me to flex the rod better so I can make a longer cast and be more consistent with the system too. It helps me to cast more effortless, because effortless action, that is what I am striving for. The Wu way of fly casting, in case you know what the Wu way is. So this little engine is actually not a motor and also not an engine. It is only a hollow tube that is filled with shotgun shots. It's a rattle, a wee little rattle, and this little rattle is attached with medical tape to the rod, like you would tape the sections of the rod off with. And this little rattle trigger that I have come up with in my positive reinforcement fly casting series is one of the tools that I have already introduced, but I have not been talking enough about it, or I have not been explaining you enough the importance of this little engine. Because once you get out and DIY yourself one of these rattle triggers, as I call them, and fix it to the rod and practice a little bit with this, with your casting, you will notice two things. A cast follows a certain rhythm. Every cast has a certain swing pattern and a certain rhythm that comes with it, along with the blueprint of the execution of that very cast. So the blueprint of a cast has a rhythm and a timing and a certain sequence to it. And your brain will connect that sequence with the rattle of the rattles inside that trigger. And this trigger is like a third or second anchor that makes it easier for your senses to grasp the cast, or to feel the cast, or to tune yourself into the system. Because I personally think and believe, and also can prove, that a cast is a vibrational, an individual vibrational affair. And this little rattle has another function, and that is the following. The fly fisher's mind is permanently worried. A lot of casters don't want to know about this psychological phenomenon, but the human mind is not hardwired to cast a fly. The human mind treats a fly cast like an accident and is therefore never open to properly feel what's going on, because in an accident protection situation, your mind is not there to feel. Your mind is there to protect you at all prices, or at all costs. That is how you say it. So, and this rattle has another psychological trigger, or another psychological function, and that is it'll calm down your mind, because you're not following suddenly that line all the time, and your mind is not going to be overwhelmed by looking at this line, or not being able to see it, or not being satisfied with the outcome too. You attach your mind to the rattle and not to the picture of the cast, and then you see what's happening. I'm going to jump now in my waders and give it a little practice session. I only wanted to introduce you this rattle trigger here a little bit. Oh, and there's another thing to it, and that is this one here. There's a thing in fly casting that's called tracking, and tracking means to keep the rod tip in a straight line, okay, at all times, or not at all times, but when you make a cast, because you can only load a rod along a straight line, and that is why you need to keep it straight when you make a forward or a back cast, for example. And this rattle in the rattle trigger, the position of them will make it easier, in my opinion, or try it out and give me a feedback on what you think about this, because I think the location of the rattles in this rattle make it easier to connect the brain through the rattle into the rod tip, and it makes it easier to keep the right tracking, because your mind is not, again, your mind is focused on a rattle and what happens inside that rattle. And what happens inside that rattle is amplified through this vibrational antenna that the fly rod is. So if you learn to tune into the rattle, you will get the same tuning outcome out of the tip of your rod. And there's a thing called, for example, a Kinder Surprise egg, or you can use an empty shotgun shell to make yourself a rattle trigger and attach it with wire or with tape in this case. And I think this is an excellent tool to get you deeper into the joy of fly casting, and something you should absolutely try, because it's so much fun to cast that thing. And that's what I'm gonna do right now. Let's giggity go. So for a mental exercise for you and for me, I'm going to do a little bit of flow casting practice with the rattle trigger. Flow casting is a form of practice I have come up with. The practice is all spike casts or one after the other without shooting line in a symmetric way. I talk about this in another space or time. And what I want you to ask is a mental exercise, and that is follow the rattle trigger with your mind. When am I rattling this trigger, or when can you hear it, or when should you hear it? Or I hope you can hear it when I perform, but I doubt it. But your mind will tell you when these rattles rattle. And that is an interesting phenomenon I would like to ask you to take recognition of. Because this year is about cast recognition and cast awareness. And this rattle will raise the awareness of your casting. So, without further ado, blah blah, let's rattle the devil a little bit there. We talked about tangling up, I hope. Tangling up is very important. If you don't tangling up, you're not doing it rightly wrong enough. So get used to tangle up in your practice. Don't be afraid of the odd tangle. Of course, that means practice with a fluff and never with a fly on. Fish with a fly on, practice with a fluff. The fluff will allow for mistakes. And the fluff will also allow for exercises like hooking behind you and trying to hook yourself with a cast, or trying to do stuff that is frowned on upon. I forgot already again about this rattle trigger, because I tell you what happens. Your mind gets totally beamed away by fly casting. Or mine does. I don't know if you ever experience that, when you get beamed away in a happy place by just making the cast. But I was only making a few casts, giving you this mental exercise of paying attention to the rattle trigger. I don't even know when I forgot myself, when I lost myself now in the process. Isn't it beautiful? Let me cast on for a little bit more and enjoy this beautiful evening. Thank you for watching these videos, and also thank you for subscribing and supporting this channel with a like and a subscribe and sharing the knowledge. I really appreciate you all, and this is a great experience to have. Get yourself a rattle trigger, beam yourself away in the world of fly casting, and enjoy being out there. Isn't it great to go with the flow?
So get out there a little bit, enjoy your practice, and try to find the energy in a much cleaner way with the rattle trigger, and also accept that there is the odd bad cast always with them. This is something you never see in this whole industry, ever someone seen making a bad cast, but it does happen even to the best. I guarantee you that. So please give us a like and a subscribe to the channel. Also, don't forget, we don't own the water owns us.